that's his shtick, right? I mean, he's treating this like a campaign event, really. He really is in jeopardy of losing everything.
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And it's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled New York edition of Criminal Reacts. I am reacting today to the Trump fiasco that's going on in New York right now. This is the civil trial regarding Trump. So much to talk about. Here's the deal. Anybody that would have the trial schedule that Donald Trump has, even if you're just, this is like a public defender schedule. Let me just give you an example. Public defenders usually handle between 300 and 600 cases a year. I handle between maybe 60 and 80, if that. I can put a lot more. He has got case after case after case after case. He's going to be in trial. So before we get into the breakdown of everything that he's looking at, this is brought to you by eSign.com. eSign.com is a very effective way to remotely do business. For example, if you had a case, say, in New York, and a case in D.C., and another case in D.C., and another case in Florida, and a couple other cases that are on their way, and other cases that you can't even mention, you got to send out documents all over the place, whether it's for requests for records. You can all do it by eSign. eSign.com is a very effective way to remotely do business. You download the app, you get 3 free signatures a month, although I think Trump is going to need more than that because he's got so much more stuff going on. I use it all the time when I bring somebody into the office or they can't make it into the office. Power of attorney, any kind of a document that you need signing, you need to sign it quickly. What do? You go to eSign. So let's get into Trump. He just attacks, and he never deals on anything with substance. Right now, he's going through this trial. I didn't realize this, but this trial is going to last into December. Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York State, is seeking $250 million plus regarding fraud and deceit by Trump by overvaluing and undervaluing his assets. Why would he do such a thing? Have you ever heard of a Ponzi scheme? A Ponzi scheme is, I take the money from this guy, use it for my own purposes. Now I don't have that money. So I take money from this guy and it's more money. So I keep some of it and then I give that back to this guy. So this guy thinks he's gotten paid, and he has gotten paid and he made a return on it. And he goes and tells other people. And so now this guy's money is no longer there and you keep shuffling it around and pretty soon you run out of people. That's what happened to Bernie Madoff. Trump is sort of doing that, only not with people. He's doing it with banks. So one of the things that Trump has done is he's inflated the value of his assets for loan and insurance purposes, right, to get a better rate on loans and actually to get more money because he lives on loan. And then he devalues it for tax purposes. Here's the other thing. Let's take a little clip from a deposition of Michael Cohen. And you can see why he does what he does.
Seven Springs. How would the Trump organization value that asset for the SOFC?
For what year?
2000. I mean, it's a general question. It's frankly not per year. It's okay. They have a process. What was the process?
The goal was to use each of the assets and increase its value in order to get to the end result number. It was basically backing in numbers to each of the asset classes in order to attain the number that Mr. Trump wanted.
Okay. So
one of the things he was talking about is being on the Forbes list. And so he wanted to be worth $8 billion. And all you do is just create an asset sheet that says, oh, this is worth so much. Let's just take Mar-a-Lago, for example. Back in the 80s, Trump bought Mar-a-Lago for, I think, roughly $7 million. He bought a tract of land from owner of KFC for like $2 million, and then he was going to block the ocean view for Mar-a-Lago. What that did is drove the value down. So I guess it's kind of a smart thing to do. I guess it's kind of a tricky real estate thing to do. And so then he bought Mar-a-Lago for $7 million. It ain't worth $1.5 billion. But some of the homes around there are worth $20 million. I mean, it certainly is worth quite a bit, but it isn't worth $1.5 billion. And so when you take that and you show it to the tax man, you're not going to want to pay 1.5, tax on 1.5 billion, right? you're going to want to pay it on the least amount possible to reduce your amount of your tax. So he's playing both sides against the middle. And they've been doing this over and over for years and years and years. So the judge in this case, Mr. Happy, we'll call him Judge Happy, they're not really allowing cameras in the courtroom. There were initially just so that people can see the initial layout. This is from Fox News. Let's just take a look at this clip real quick.
There's a camera in that courtroom. Was that supposed to be, or would they just be simply ushered out when we're gavelled to order?
Well, you're more likely to have cameras in state proceedings, and so it's up to the discretion of the judge. And quite frankly, I'm not too sure that both parties would want this. I think that Trump views this, the optics of this, as working to his advantage. Look, people looking at this live picture right now will be either filled with rage.
So look at Trump is just staring down the judge.
Or they will be thrilled. And that's the problem, is that, you have James now being shown in the background. You've got Trump in the foreground. And it's a filled.
There's Judge Happy. He just looks like a little bit of a doofus. I mean, I'm not saying he's a doofus because I'm sure he's a learned judge and everything.
Narrative on both.
But look at me. He looks like a dork. I mean, what are you doing mugging for the camera? That's pretty
Trump
unprofessional.
Is likely right. I mean, he's being shown in a sort of tag team series of prosecutions and civil lawsuits.
It's like, what the fuck is going on with that judge? But let's talk about that judge for a second. This is I'm sure he's a liberal judge, blah, 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 interference with the election, that's all just whatever. He has granted summary judgment against Trump on the first count. There's I think 7 counts or something like that. And he's ordered, their corporate certificates to be rescinded so that Trump and his sons cannot do business in New York. Now, that'll get appealed, of course, but that's huge. That is absolutely huge. And then you appoint a receiver to disperse the assets. And one of the things that Letitia... So this is going to be really a thing more about damages than anything else. And so they're looking at $250 million plus in damages. But let's look at what Trump says about the preparation of these documents. These financial statements, they have a disclaimer on them that you are required to do your own due diligence, and that basically don't rely on these because they're all bullshit.
To meet your obligation here of presenting the information in accordance with GAAP, was Alan Weiselberg responsible for that?
Object to the form.
I would say yes.
I would say yes. Is it somebody else's fault? I would say yes. I mean, he's throwing his assistant or CFO under the bus. CFO is Chief Financial Officer. So he's throwing him under the bus. And remember, Alan Weiselberg already did 6 months or 5 months in prison for perpetuating a fraud in furtherance of the business. And this is just an extension of that criminal proceeding, really. And Trump is number one to admit he did anything wrong. But he is also never one to back down from a fight, although he's never one to necessarily win a fight either. If you look at all his legal battles that he's had, the 62 election challenges, lost all but maybe one of them. You look at the E. Carroll case, he got his ass handed to there, $5 million, and now she's going to get more impunities. Well, just look at him outside the courthouse.
Continuation of the single greatest witch hunt of all time.
Sitting there and bitching about it, witch hunt. There's definitely a sect that buys into that, but it just is what it is.
We have a rogue judge who rules that properties are worth a tiny fraction, 1/100th, a tiny fraction of what they actually are. We have a racist attorney general who's a horror show who ran.
She's racist against a white guy? Come on.
On the basis that she was going to get Trump before she even knew anything about me. She used this to run for governor. She failed in her attempt to run for governor. She had virtually no polling.
How does her running for governor have anything to do with what we're dealing with here? It has nothing to do with the substance.
She came back and she said, well, now I'll go back to get Trump again. And this is what we have. It's a scam. It's a sham.
It's a scam. It's a sham. It's an all-around flim-flam. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I say that way too much. Rarely does one side get what they want in terms of a summary judgment motion. Summary judgment is where usually Rule 56, and it means that there's no genuine issue of material fact. What that means is that the evidence is so overwhelming, one side or the other, that it's so clear that there really isn't any dispute here. And so what the judge basically said in his ruling is that, look, the evidence is overwhelming. We're going to disgorge you of your ill-gotten gains. We're going to ban you from doing business in the state of New York. Go appeal me.
Just so you know, my financial statements are phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
They are actually less in terms of the numbers used than the actual net worth. The actual net worth is substantially more.
So, I mean, he's why would you do this? I mean, he's sitting there. You can use these statements in court against him. So there's substantially more. And you'd have to back that up.
No bank was affected. No bank was hurt. They don't even know why they have to be involved.
He has declared bankruptcy how many times?
So testified. They can't believe that they're involved because they were paid back on time. There were no defaults. There were no problems. And it was like a perfect client. In the meantime, people are being murdered all over the sidewalks of New York.
Okay, now, the Attorney General's office has nothing to do with those street crimes.
There was no victim here. The banks were represented by the best, biggest, most prestigious law firms in the state of New York, actually in the country. Some of the biggest and best law firms. In all cases, the biggest and best law firms. That's who represented them. The banks got back their money. Again, there was never a default. There was never a problem. Everything was perfect. There was no crime. The crime is against me because we have a corrupt district.
Now, in every scenario, he paints himself as the victim. Every single scenario. And he says, and he'll say, if they can do this to me, they can do this to you. So you need to be on my side.
District attorney, but we have a corrupt attorney general. And it all comes down from the DOJ. They're totally coordinated. It's in Washington because I'm the leading candidate.
Okay, now it's DOJ, and DOJ's got nothing to do with this. That's the Department of Justice.
Leading Biden by 10 points, and I'm leading the Republicans by 50 and 60 points. That's pretty much, they say, over. I never accept that, but they say it's over.
I don't know. That's his shtick, right? I mean, he's treating this like a campaign event, really. But he really is in jeopardy of losing everything. But he didn't have as much as he said he did. I mean, he certainly is wealthy. There's no question about that. But he's about to lose his Turnberry golf course in Scotland. He's about, I think he's more underwater than people think he is. And do you remember when he first started out his campaign? His very first campaign, what did he say? I'm rich. I'm funding my own campaign. I don't need anybody's money, And then what is he doing? On every one of these things, he's raising money. Why does he need all that money? He lost his D.C. hotel. I mean, he is not this pillar of the business community. He is a scam artist. And that's what this case is basically about. Scamming the tax man and scamming, the insurance and the banks. And it's just another version of a Ponzi scheme. Only the victims are the banks, not and insurance companies and the tax man. I don't think he's going to be sitting there throughout this whole trial, to be honest with you. He's there at the beginning, maybe this week, but he won't be there for the rest of the trial because it's going to be boring, and I don't think he's got the attention span for it. Neither does the American public either, because you're going to see that. And do you remember initially he was complaining that, we don't get a jury, blah, blah, blah. Well, wait a second. You elected to have a bench trial, so that was something they elected, his lawyers elected to have a bench trial rather than a jury trial. So, I mean, you can't complain about something that you initiated. As we go through this process, it's going to be tedious because you're dealing with land values, you're dealing with assessments, you're dealing with appraisals, you're dealing with a lot of dry shit. But it's very impactful on his bottom line and his ability to do business in the state of New York. And it'll be a long time before they can get any kind of ruling from the Court of Appeals. And he may win the Court of Appeals argument. I don't know. I have no dog in that fight. And I really don't have any dog in this fight, honestly. But I do know that when you say an asset is worth X amount, it's got to be based upon reality. You know, if you pledge an asset for collateral, and that's what we're talking about here, you can't say that it's worth, because the banks have their own duty to protect themselves and to make sure that what they're doing and their lending practices are just, right? Or just, or conform with the regulations. But an asset, you can't leverage 100% of an asset. So my guess is that, they would borrow against an asset and, pay that down a little bit, and then they'd start running out of money, and then they'd need to borrow more money. So then they would increase, so then they'd reapply for another loan, increase the value of the asset falsely, and they would just keep doing that over and over and over again. Mar-a-Lago, I don't care what you say, is not worth $1.5 billion. It just isn't. I mean, he paid $7 billion for it back in the 80s. It's worth probably, I am not even going to guess. It's worth a lot, though. I mean, it's worth a lot more than $7 billion. But my prediction, and I think I've been right on 99% of these predictions, because I can see these things coming and going. He's going to lose this and lose big. And he's going to owe a shit ton of money, and they're going to liquidate a bunch of his assets to satisfy that. And then they'll probably stay the order pending appeal, but I'd be shocked if this wasn't upheld. So we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts. This is our reaction to Donald Trump and his civil trial. Now remember, he's got the Manhattan DA after him for fraud case. He's got 2 cases in D.C. He's got the document case in Mar-a-Lago and the January 6th case. And then he's also got the Georgia election interference case. He's got a lot on his plate. 91 counts he's been indicted on. That's an insurmountable. The amount of money that's going out in attorney's fees is remarkable. And it's all from donors. He's not paying for that himself. I mean, because he's rich. Remember, he's rich? Well, why can't he pay his own attorney bills? It is what it is. So we'll see you next time here in Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, board-certified criminal defense lawyer with our content genius, Michael Rivers. And we'll see you next time. Make sure you subscribe, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Patreon, and we'll see you next time here in Criminal Lawyer Reacts.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away.
23-hour lockdown, please, is that my God?